other places as well where the English is the first language, right? So welcome to everybody. We are very happy to share some extra informations with you guys. We are part of Dakila Research based in Brazil. We are an extended Dakila Research here in Australia. And today, I'm happy to introduce to you Felipe Castelo Branco, which is our director, Dakila Research Director, and also Dakila Research Australia Coordinator. So he's responsible to bring all these informations and research that we have been doing for a long time already, probably more than 30 years doing that. And we are going to talk today about what is being globally well discussed, which is about the Varginha situation and abduction versus another case we witnessed in 20 years ago, I think, with our president of Dakila Research in Brazil, Urandir Fernandes de Oliveira. So, and this is super important to us to share with you because we're going to bring some information about what is extra-dimensional beings and also extraterrestrial beings as well. So it's kind of important to know what is the difference between both of them. And the data we have from the studies we had from the abduction, or better to say, the invitation of Urandir Fernandes de Oliveira back in 20 years ago. Okay, so I will pass the voice to Felipe Castelo Branco. Please, Felipe Castelo Branco, introduce yourself and welcome everybody. Send us the message with questions if you need. At the end, we're gonna save a time for the questions and answers as well. Enjoy.
Hi everybody. Good night. Thank you very much for the invitation. Well, I am Felipe Castelo Branco. I am a director of Dakila. I am the coordinator for Dakila Australia, Dakila United States, Canada, and Dakila Portugal. And tonight we're going to talk about I believe one of the most important abductions in history. This is not what my belief. This was the phrase used by the world-known journalist Linda Moulton-Howe that did the how can I put it, the investigation down here in Brazil of the abduction when it occurred more than 20 years ago in February 2003. And she came down here to our world headquarters and she did an extensive research. She took back to the United States several pieces of evidence in order to be studied, analyzed by researchers, scientists of her trust, of course. And she wrote a report and she made a very short documentary about it, like 20 minutes. A very short documentary showing all the evidence and the discoveries made, by the scientists that performed several tests in this pieces of evidence that she gathered down at our world headquarters in Varginha, Brazil. And it's very interesting because according to her, it was her words, saying that it was the most incredible abduction in history and the only one with a vast, how can I put it, with several evidences, if you will, that proved the abduction, which could not be explained by world-class scientists. And it was simply amazing. And after She received all the results from these tests, from the studies, from these experiments. She did only one presentation in a very small event in Seattle, in the United States, and she never again spoke about it. That's very odd, very strange. We believe that she was told not to talk about it. As a matter of fact, I have more evidence, but I cannot talk about it. Unfortunately, this abduction has several nuances to it, and one of it is that certain information has to be kept secret for the moment, because it's a very delicate situation or involves Linda Moulton Howe. She's still alive, fortunately, even though she's an old lady, you know, maybe she's over 80 years old, I believe, but she's still active, and we do not want to, you know, compromise her, you know, her work or reputation, because what happened here in Brazil was extremely important. And it's interesting that in the past months, they have resuscitated a case, not an abduction, but an alien contact case known as the Varginha case, okay, where I believe 2 extraterrestrials, or one maybe, was found in this little town in Minas Gerais, in the state of Minas Gerais in Brazil, more than 30 years ago, you know, and he was taken to a hospital. He was treated by a local doctor, and then came the Brazilian military, took the being to somewhere, to an undisclosed location. Then the US military got involved and allegedly took the being back to the States. It's very important to differentiate these 2 cases, because the Varginha case, first of all, was not an abduction. It was a contact with several witnesses, but the beings involved, they were in nature 3rd dimensional. They were physical, just like us. They are from, if you will, the same density than us. Therefore, it's a category of beings that we describe as planetary beings. Usually they are 3rd dimensional beings of the same density as ours, whereas the 49 races with which we have this partnership, they are extra-dimensional or interdimensional, or dimensional, as we call them, okay? And it's interesting to realize that there's a narrative being created, being fabricated, that apparently we are supposed to fear extra-dimensional beings or interdimensional beings. And many researchers, whistleblowers, you know, as they are being known, this ex-military, ex-CIA, ex-government officials, they are beginning to talk about the phenomena, the UFO phenomena, the relationship of the alleged relationship of the US government with these beings. They are fabricating a narrative saying that, oh, they are interdimensional beings, they are extra-dimensional beings. This is not the case. They are fabricating a narrative, a fake narrative, in order to dupe the population, you know, in order to, as I surmise, try to mislead the population into fearing the 49 races, because they are being described as interdimensional or extra-dimensional beings, and not to worry too much about the 3rd dimensional beings. So this is very tricky, and it's very important that we point it out and separate these 2 categories, because they are trying to impose this narrative for obvious reasons. they simply cannot allow the population to think, to suspect that our leaders, the governments of the earth, are working on behalf of alien races that do control the world we live in, all aspects of our lives. They have manufactured an invisible prison that we like to use the allegory of The Matrix, the famous movie, The Matrix, this fake world fabricated by these elites, by this leadership, but on behalf of a group of aliens who are not from here, who are third dimensional beings, same density as we are, that we call them the Anunnakis. Those that indeed fabricated humans 450,000 years ago. Of course, prior to that, we have several other races, civilizations linked to different extraterrestrial groups, but we're not going to talk about it tonight because otherwise we're going to sort of mix things up a little bit and it can be a little bit confusing for those that are not really aware of what's going on or never heard of this subject. So it's better that we separate, the discussion. Maybe later we can discuss about these prior races, that were evolved here on Earth, even stretching back to 450 million years ago when the Muriel race landed here, built Ratanabá, this huge city that we are finding, its ruins, if you will, in the Amazon. But this is another story. So it's better we do separate these two stories, if you will, because otherwise it will be a little bit confusing to understand. So
Felipe,
go ahead.
Just to understand, so the case for bringing up this information about the Varginha contact is to maybe after almost 30 years, I think, is to bring some doubts or causing confusion about what is the extraterrestrial and what is the extra-dimensional beings, right? So that's why we are bringing this information now in the discussion today, because it's super important to make everybody understand the difference between those things, but also seeing behind the scenes what is happening to make people believe in something different that it is, okay? So the extra-dimensional beings, it is the beings that we have a contact with at Dakila, and we have been with them for 30 years at least. So they have been beside us and telling us all the information we need about civilizations and all our through history. The human beings, how the human beings started, what everything about our world, and all of these manipulations that we live like a matrix, let's say. But the confusion is causing because they are bringing this situation with the extraterrestrial in Varginha, which is kind of interesting anyway. It is a contact, physical contact. But when we had the abduction, or better to say, invitation of Urandir Fernandes de Oliveira in Brazil, wasn't too big, wasn't brought up all of these data and studies because it wasn't interested to anybody else to know that other people, other group is having contact with extra-dimensional beings. So what is can you explain to us what is extraterrestrial beings first, making compilating the information with the Varginha contact, for example?
Yeah, I think I have mentioned already a little bit, but for instance, the Varginha beings, as I was saying, They are beings of the same density as we are, same density. They are physical, just like us. We call this sort of beings, this class, if you will, beings, planetary beings, okay? The extra-dimensional or the interdimensional beings, which are the 49 races that we've been in this partnership, we've been training with them, receiving information, technology for the past 30 years. They are beings of different dimensional, okay? Their bodies are subtler, okay, than ours. They are more energy and less matter, okay? So, and they come from various dimensions. They come from the 5th, the 6th, the 7th, the 8th, up to the 13th dimension, okay? They are telling us that, okay? Not we are inventing things, you know. These are all information that comes from their mouth to our ears, because all our interactions are physical, verbal, face-to-face, where we can record, film, so that there's no peril of manipulation of the information, so that the information is maintained intact. That's the most important thing. This was the agreement of our president, Urandir, with his 49 races before he began the work with the Project Portal in the beginning, and then Dakila today, you know, well, today, that's what, 10 years or so. And this is very important to understand. And the Varginha case, they are sort of resuscitating, as I mentioned. Strangely enough, this case in the past couple of months, in order to corroborate their narrative, this narrative of, you know, space beings walking around the earth, being around here. It's a part of the puzzle they are building, okay, of this, of these planetary third dimensional beings, you know, being around the planet for some time. It's the same narrative of the Greys, about Roswell, about, a disk was shut down in the 1940s and they had to retrieve the cadavers, and they have kept these beings there studying. And then later on, in 1947, I believe, this race came down to Holloman Air Force Base, had a conversation with the US government and cut a deal, some kind of agreement in order to receive maybe technology. I don't know exactly what they say, because many researchers tell a different story. But generally, this is the narrative. You know, this is a narrative being built in order to give the impression to the population that our leaders, our governments have a say, have a contribution, that they are engaged in a partnership with these beings, not that they are sort of pawns of an alien race that do indeed control everything, which is the fact. This is the fact. This is the real situation. They do not want this this knowledge to be known by the population. They do not want this. People are not supposed to be aware of this relationship, okay? Because it's going to create chaos, it's going to create upheaval, revolution, for sure. And they do not want either to have the population aware of a group of people from all walks of life. They have nothing to do with the elites, with the governments, with any kind of leadership that managed to have an alliance, a partnership with these 49 races, because this is a threat to their narrative. Because if you have a group of people talking to these 49 races, talking to these dimensional beings, as we call them, recording, filming everything, receiving technology, information, people can understand that there is a group receiving information which are maybe correct, and that the information being dispensed by the government, being, talked about by the governments, are a narrative, a constructed narrative, which is the case. You see what I mean? So it's a little bit confusing, but for someone who's just arriving, in the subject, but those that already study, read about the subject, are very aware of what I'm talking about. And the situation with the abduction of Urandir, the supposed abduction, it wasn't really an abduction, it was an invitation, because Urandir knew the beings that were going to take him. They gave him a window of time, in order for him to be ready and prepared to be taken aboard the ship in a way, in a fashion that would leave evidence, physical evidence. Because before, Urandir has been taken to their ships and also to their dimensions several times, in order to complete his training with them. So he was sort of staged by the aliens, by the 49 races. It was a staged abduction, okay, on purpose. But why? Why did they do that? Because the abduction occurred in September 2002. Linda Moulton Howe came down here to Brazil in order to do the research on February 2003, all right? But prior to that, okay, Projeto Portal was our old name, was found in maybe September or October of 1997, okay? And since the inception of Projeto Portal, since we started doing the gatherings here at the farm, which was a very primitive place, we did not have electricity, nothing. It was just the forest all over, and we used to camp there, There was absolutely no facilities whatsoever. Running water, nothing, absolutely nothing. But since the beginning, the first trips there to the farm, which started occurring in January of 1997, I went to the second expedition to the farm, if you will, late January 1997. Since then, A.J. Gevard, who was the former, also, he has passed already, but he was the former editor of the UFO magazine, director of MUFON Brazil. MUFON is the Mutual UFO Network, which is the biggest UFO association in the world, but they are there in order to police and to serve as gatekeepers for everything concerning the UFO phenomenon. They are not seeking the truth. They don't want to talk about the truth. They don't want to present the population with the truth. They are gatekeepers, okay, serving an agenda, all right? And A.J. Gevard was one of the goons, and he went a couple of times to the farm, early 97, I don't remember in which month, that's 30 years ago almost, but he took laser, those laser flashlights, the laser pointers, and he used to use the laser pointers, pretending that was the technology involved in order to, sort of mess things up there in our gatherings, And he was always trying to discredit what was occurring in the farm. That's very odd because we had hundreds and hundreds of people witnessing UFOs, probes, beings walking around, was hundreds of people witnessing that. How come A.J. Gevard never did a serious research there? He was always smearing us, always lying about the situation, always describing Urandir as some kind of guru or fake crook, that was there in order to make a quick buck, Why never He never did a proper research. Why? None of the other UFO researchers, who were all of them under his umbrella of influence, all of them, he prohibited them to come to Dakila, to the farm here. There was not Dakila there, but he prohibited them to do it. He said, no, he's a crook. I've been there. He was simply telling them to dismiss and ignore everything that was occurring here. Okay? And he kept writing crazy articles on UFO magazine, Ano Zero, which was also a magazine that talked about the UFO phenomena in Brazil. And there was also Ano Zero in Spain that they used to publish his articles as well, always smearing us, always lying about everything that occurred here in the farm, in Dakila, in our headquarters here. So the partner said, Urandir, we're going to do something with you. We're going to take you, we're going to abduct you, and we're going to leave several evidences so that you can call these people and tell them, do the research. And therefore, prove that everything that's occurring here is real. It's not a lie, it's not staged, it's not fantasy, it is real, in fact. So they did it. And Urandir told us, the inner circle, his inner circle. We knew the window of time. He had 1 week to prepare and to wait for this abduction to occur. He even told us the sign of the time that they are going to take me is the disc-shaped stones, these little disc-shaped stones here. They would start falling from the skies because these disc-shaped stones, unlike what A.J. Guevara used to say, that these stones were normal in the area, that were found in the area in many quantities, that has nothing to do with the aliens, with ETs, with nothing. Used to say it was just a normal stone, because we could find these stones in crazy amounts there in the farm. And he used to say, this is a normal stone of the area, of the region. Okay, and the partner said, the sign will be these stones being falling from the sky. And we caught this on tape because we were about 30 people on the farm. And when they started the abduction, we could hear the disc-shaped stones falling like raining, raining stones, disc-shaped stones. And on that day was a Sunday, I remember. And it was the last day of the window, of the 7-day window of time. It was on the last day. And on that last day, earlier on, I spoke to Urandir and I told him, Urandir, we ran out of food. I have to go to the near town of Rochedo to buy some groceries to take it back home. So I'm going to go there quickly with my sister, my mom, and my aunt. We were together in our house there in the farm. And then I said, okay, but be quick because today's the last day. And I don't remember what happened. I lingered a little bit in order to go and fetch the groceries in the nearby town. And around 6:37 p.m., I left in my car, my truck. We were going towards Rochedo. And on the road, exiting the farm around near the house of Urandir, I saw the disc-shaped stones falling in my car. Boom, 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 boom. And oh my God, this is the sign. I stopped the car and I rushed back home, got my camcorder. At that time was the old format, the VHS-C, the small tapes, analog camera. This was 2002. And we rushed to his house. And when we rushed to his house, we tried to open the door of his room. And it was locked from the inside. And then arrived his son, Alain, And other people of Dakila, Olávio, Osvaldo, Pamela knows them all. And we arrived there and we broke in his room. And when we entered the room, to our amazement, we saw, the shadow, the silhouette, a strange dark silhouette printed on his mattress. It looked burned. And we had the same silhouette burned on the ceiling made out of wood, and we had the same silhouette printed, and we're like, oh my God, what happened here? It was a very eerie feeling we felt. The smell of ozone was very, very strong. We were all like excited, and we saw that. It was incredible. And then one of our associates called José Roberto, unfortunately, he passed several years ago because he was already, a senior citizen, if you will. He was around 75 years old at that time. He witnessed Urandir being taken by the beam of light. He witnessed, and he even called Urandir, Urandir, have a safe trip. And Urandir answered, because when he returned from the ship, from the abduction 3 days later, he said, Zé Roberto, I heard you telling me safe trip, and I saluted you back. Did you hear me? And Zé Roberto, yes, I heard. Even that, we had a witness that, saw Urandir being taken by this beam of light, inside the ship. It was simply incredible. We made, videos, photographs, and then a few days later, understanding the importance of this abduction, I sent a video and a few photographs to an American radio host called Jeff Renz. He had a program on the radio, on the US radio, and also on the internet called Renz Radio. We still have this program today, RenzRadio.com. I still listen to him. It's been more than 30 years I've been listening to him. I trusted him. I was aware that his work was correct. He was a very interesting person, honest person, and he wasn't engaged in any crazy agenda or shady agenda or anything like that. He was a researcher, a seeker of truth, if you will. And I sent this information to him, the photographs, the video, and he was amazed. He was like, oh my God, this is crazy. Let's do a program. I said, okay. We agreed on a program. I think it was broadcasted on let me check here. I think it was December the 12th, if I'm not mistaken. Let me see here. Yes, here. Let me share with you guys so that I can illustrate a little bit what I'm talking about. Over here, let me see here. Can you see? December 12th, Thursday, it was a Thursday. From Brazil, Felipe Castelo Branco, amazing abduction story. Can you guys see?
Yes,
Pablo?
we can see.
Yes,
Felipe.
Okay.
it's clear.
All right. Okay. So this was the program we made with Jeff. Martin Dillon was canceled. He was canceled. He did the full show with us. And because he was amazed. And Urandir gave a very interesting interview. It was like a 3-hour program. I was translating, and it was a success. A few days later, Jeff sent me an email. Felipe, was amazing. More than 50 million people, 50, more than 50 million people heard. The program was a success. I received a lot of email, a lot of feedback, positive feedback. And then a couple of days later, if I'm not mistaken, Linda Moulton Howe called up our headquarters in São Paulo at that time, because I was there with Urandir and my sister, and she phoned our headquarters there. As a matter of fact, it was the office, our office, São Paulo office. She called up and she started yelling at me. I was very surprised because I was like, hello, yes. Oh, this is Linda Moulton Howe. How can you do a program like that? Affirm those things. I am a journalist, very famous. I never came across such an abduction case and this and that. I was like, okay, boom. I hang up the phone at her face, and I waited for a few minutes because Linda did not know at that time, but I already met her in the 1980s when I was in university in England. I was the European representative of a Brazilian UFO Research Association presided by world-class researcher Irene Grant. And I had met her already in the 80s, and I knew her work. I knew she was serious, but I wasn't aware of her arrogance. So I gave her a few minutes because I knew she was going to come back. Her curiosity, it's far greater than her arrogance. So she called me back and said, oh, no, I'm sorry. I said, Linda, I know who you are. We met in the 80s. Okay, I greatly appreciate your work. I know of your reputation. The abduction that occurred here is crazy, unheard of. They left a lot of evidences of traces that should be analyzed by proper scientists and should be researched, investigated by someone whose reputation is unblemished. And we do not have that in Brazil. Because after my program with Jeff Reyes, it reverberated in Brazil in a crazy, it's so crazy, it reverberated in a negative way. Because A.J. Guevara started, saying, giving interviews on the radio, writing articles in the magazine saying that Urandir burned the bed sheet, where the silhouette was found. He used, I don't know, I don't even remember what he affirmed. Matches, I don't remember exactly what he wrote, but he was saying that it was all fake, it was all staged, that was ridiculous, that was pathetic. He was affirming that without coming down to the farm and investigated right there in place. He never did it. He never done it. And I told that to Linda and said, Linda, you should come down here and do the research because nobody here is willing to tackle this research properly. Okay? And Linda said, okay, I'll come down in February. And she came, I don't remember the date, but she came and spent 10 days here with us, or 12 days. She spent plenty of time. And she did all the research, the local research. We agreed to give her the bed sheets, the pillowcase, everything, pieces of the ceiling for her to analyze it, and other things as well, okay? She took, several disc-shaped stones, because A.J. Guevara used to say that they were natural occurrences in the region, which is completely false. These are alien rocks. They are made with a technology that was studied at the University of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia by Professor Guma, who was the chief of the geology department of UPenn, University of Pennsylvania, Ivy League school in the States. He was one of the most important geologists in the world. And he was surprised. And Linda documented everything. she made a small documentary that she never, as far as I know, this documentary was never aired. Never. Okay? And she, when she presented the case in Seattle, she did it once only, never, and shut up. Never again presented the case. Okay? She disguised it as a farmer, an ignorant farmer that was abducted and found himself inside this spaceship with tall, blonde, white beans, and that's it, you know. She made up a story in order to comply with the official narrative accepted by ufologists all over the world. And this was my experience because she stayed at our house there in the farm. I took her there. I spent all the time there in the farm with her. You know, she stayed in my house there. And I had many discussions with her. One of this discussion is this. She was telling me one night, how am I going to present this to the world? I shouldn't even say this, but since I was there, I'm going to say it. She was arguing with me. How can I present this to the world? How can I present this case of abduction of someone that's been taken to this ship and he was aware of it? He knew them. He knew what was going on. There were more than 35 people on the farm. They knew that that was going to happen. And this group, led by Urandir, was being trained in order to talk to this being physically, verbally, face to face. I cannot do that. Why? Because if she would do that, she would attract the attention of the world to the group. And at that time, I'm talking about early 2003. Yes, we were training. We had many interactions with these beings face to face. That was my case. I had already at that time hundreds of interactions with several beings of the 49 races, short, tall, taller, you know, several of them. But we were not yet capable of understanding them. When they used to talk to us, we used to hear like a mumbling noise. We could not understand them. We started understanding them on 2006. 2006, we began to understand them perfectly. Speaking Portuguese, no problem. But it took us three more years in order to fine-tune our brain activity to a certain level that would permit us to understand them speaking perfectly well. Okay? That's why on 2003, we were not understanding them yet. So it would be a problem if we would have the whole world looking at us, coming down here to check what was going on. Really, you know, with this group of people talking to aliens, two-dimensional aliens. What's going on? But it would be a little bit complicated because at that time, only Urandir understood them. So it would be a little difficult. So let's say everything happened, even though at that time we were not really happy with the outcome. We expected to be corroborated by Linda's research. We were not expecting her to shut up, but later on we understood. And when we began understanding the partners, talking, conversing with the partners, they explained us why. All the whys, why the timeline unfolded the way it did. Because we needed more people speaking with the partners, talking to them, understanding them. Urandir, being the only one, could be dangerous because if they would take him out, who would finish the training? Because Urandir was the main facilitator between the 49 races and the group. He was training us on behalf of the 49 races because he was the only one that was prepared by them in order to understand them, to talk to them, verbally, physically, face-to-face. We were still training. It took us 3 more years for us to understand them, even though we had face-to-face contacts with them. So it's the MO of the parties. It's how they operate. It's how they were training us. I don't fully understand. I don't pretend to understand because, you know, it's a little bit complex, of course, that a group of dimensional beings from various dimensions, different dimensions, are sort of training of group of humans from the 3rd dimension down here and fine-tuning them, okay, with each dimension of their origins, respectively, you know, so that we could understand them physically and hear them and understand them perfectly well in Portuguese. You see what I mean? So afterwards, we understood the timeline. But yeah, you want to ask something?
No, yeah, that's
okay.
why I was intrigued to bring up this information about both cases, because now what we have seen, it is a huge noise about the Varginha case, but not a huge noise about what happened to us, and especially with to Urandir Fernandes de Oliveira back in that time. And then we start to understand why things it's coming to this way, towards this way, because we have a certain we know that they're gonna take this information and disrupt this information as they want to bring us to their narrative. So that's that's why we are bringing this information. And also Felipe is going to show us all the paperwork was done back in that time by Linda Monterhal, which is not
the research,
yeah, which is nobody else more more than the principal, the main scientist in this field, which is super important. So let's bring this information as well and see what we have. I think Felipe has a video as well.
Yes, I also have a video.
An interview. Good.
Yeah, let's jump to it then. Because illustrations are important. I think pictures are more important than words. It has a different impact. Let me share my screen here. And okay.
This time to show these things is very important for us, guys, because we need to be prepared what is coming, and be ready to see behind the scenes what they are preparing as a narrative. Okay, so that's...
Did you guys see the photo?
Yes.
Did you guys see the photo? Okay, this is the silhouette of Urandir. Okay, this is the imprint he left. Okay, on the bed sheet. You can see that he was laying down, and this is his arm. Can you see the cursor here?
Yes, we can see.
Okay, okay. This is his arm. He was reading a book, and this bluish beam of light surrounded him, and he became immobilized. And then when this happened, he dropped the book, and he began to ascend. This guy with a camel pants, here, it's me, right here, okay? This was like maybe half an hour after he was taken. And this is the silhouette, not projected, but on the ceiling, because they took him through the ceiling, you see? The exact same silhouette, see? The exact same. And the interesting thing is that Urandir was describing that now, today, we understand the technology because they explained us what they did. But at that time, we did not understand the technology. But basically what they did is that they altered the density of the ceiling. And Urandir said that when he passed through the ceiling, he felt as if the ceiling became a foam. He had the same density as foam, no longer as wood, okay? And he was very worried because he was ascending. He was ascending. It was like a tractor beam, that was pulling him up to the ship. And when he was about to hit the ceiling, he was like, oh my God, he was thinking, he couldn't move. He was immobilized by this beam of light. But he was very worried. He was like, oh my God, I'm going to hit the ceiling. And then all of a sudden, he just simply passed through the ceiling. And he said that the density felt like foam, And this is Linda here. This is her when she came. She did all the research. And she took these bed sheets to the States, She was doing all the research. This is the old room of Urandir. And the interesting thing is this, I'm going to put you guys the video that she sent me with the research, but the interesting fact is this. Here are the threads, okay? These are the threads of the bed sheet, okay? The white one here, which is vitrified, all right? This is cotton, okay? Cotton threads mixed with polyester threads. This blue one here, it's polyester. What amazed the scientist that Linda took the bed sheets to be analyzed. She took it to be analyzed at Philadelphia. I don't remember now. The Philadelphia Textile Center, something like that. He did the photographs, he did analysis, and he said, "This is incredible. We do not have technology to repeat this, to do this, because you can see that the cotton threads are vitrified. In order to vitrify cotton, you have to reach a temperature of heat like 10 times higher than the temperature in order to vitrify polyester. And yet, the polyester threads are untouched, okay? Untouched. How did they do it? He said that there's no way we have technology. He said that this was done in a molecular level, and we do not have technology for that. This was very impressive. Same occurred with Linda here, with Dr. Omar Guma, which is the gentleman here on the left. He put the disc-shaped stone in an electronic microscope and analyzed the images. Here is that's what he did. He cut in half the disc-shaped stone like this and put it in the electronic microscope. And what did he find? First of all, he found this. These are photographs taken from the documentary, all right? So you guys have an idea. This is crystals found inside the disc-shaped stones. This is hepatite. It is a crystal that can be found inside our pineal gland, okay? Inside our pineal gland. That's why these disc-shaped stones, as our partners explain us, these are artifacts. They are not simply stones because they resonate with our pineal gland, thanks to the presence of these crystals here inside our pineal gland and inside the disc-shaped stones. And also, he found these crystals, which are not found on Earth. He doesn't know what they are, these crystals here. And so, thus proving that A.J. Guevara was lying when he was affirming that the stones are normal to the region of Varginha, where the farm is, the county where the farm is. These are not stones. These are artifacts produced by a force, a technology unknown by us, you know. So I'm going to put here the video so that you guys have an idea. And Linda, she never played this video. She never published this video, as far as I know, in more than 20 years. That's very strange, very odd. It was 7:30 p.m., September the 15th, 2002, when he was taken. This was a video of Fabrice, was a guy that lived there. He's documenting the disc-shaped stones falling from the sky.
It's not with sound. Does it have any sound?
Does it have any sound? Ah, yes, it doesn't have sound. I forgot. Wait, I have to share.
That's okay.
I have to share. Let me see if I can share, because sometimes it does not permit that I share with audio. Let me check here. Wait. Wait. Let me check. Okay.
Yeah, so that's the questions we need to do when, in regards to the information is being spreading over there, because we have all of these informations, we have all of this data, scientific studies with someone very well known in the scientific field, and nothing is coming out to the internet or even to the places they discuss about aliens contact or experience with another beings, which is odd. So
it's not odd. I would say that they cannot do that, because if they do that, they will corroborate what's going on down here. And if they do that, people will have to listen to us. You see what I mean? And it will be simply impossible to sort of censor whatever information we're putting out. You see, that's the problem. The powers that be, they must safeguard their narratives. And if the population will come to know that there is a group of thousands of people, which is the case in 2026, they have reached a level of physical, verbal, face-to-face conversations with these 49 races, that they are telling us information, that they are guiding us in research, in discoveries, in documentaries, such as the Convex Earth, such as Ratanabá, such as the Piabiru Trails or the Muriel Trails. You see what I mean? Such as, let's say, a few technologies that we are beginning to introduce, you know, will be a threat to the powers that be, and they don't want that. That's why we have been persecuted for this past 30 years. We've been censored. We're being, I don't know, attacked. It's crazy. Even though we expand year by year, we expand, we have more people. We are present in 12 countries. We have bases, important bases abroad. We have partnerships with University of Abu Dhabi. We have partnerships with the United Arab Emirates government. We had a presence there documented in several gatherings promoted by the government there in Dubai, and we were present there. And they don't want us they don't want the population to be aware of what's going on, because then their lies will be exposed. Their narratives, fake narratives, will be exposed. You see what I mean? That's the problem. That's why I've been so persecuted. But now this time is going to end soon. Can you hear now let's see if you can have the sound.
Yes, we have the sound.
Yes, we can.
Vai começar a cair. Caiu uma pedra aí?
Não, bateu no meu peito, eu peguei. Peito?
Deixa eu ver. Não, deixa eu filmar ela bem mais pro claro.
Deixa eu ver as outras.
Opa, caramba, eu tenho que pegar elas caindo pra filmadora. Eu acho que eu vou botar ela como night shot.
Não é a chuva de ser de luz. Exatamente.
Viu? O Urandir falou pra mim que ia cair sem coisa.
Pra ele fumar. Vou pegar minha lanterna, vou pegar uma lanterna.
Calma aí que eu não achei o foco dela, Chico.
Com luz ou sem
Mostra ela de lado.
Com luz ou sem luz?
Pode mostrar de lado, Carlos Magno. Aí, assim, tá ótimo. Tá ótimo assim, tá no night shot, valeu.
Aqui, sobe ali, ó. Ali, ó. Caiu.
Você viu uma que tem ali em cima?
Não vi, peraí. Deixa eu filmar aí, pessoal.
Deixa o Fabrício passar aí pra filmar.
É o seguinte,
Olha o teto, olha o teto.
a marca que ele deixou na cama é igualzinha à marca que deixou no teto. Como se tivesse se projetado da cama para o teto, e a marca é de queimado, cheira de queimado. Quando nós chegamos aqui, ele já estava em cima.
Caramba, hein? Ninguém rela em nada. Chegou agora, mulher?
They are explained that the marks is the same in the bed and the roof, isn't it?
Yes, exactly that.
Não, nós chegamos e arrombamos a porta. Foi?
Mas ele tava aqui?
Não, então, quando aconteceu a chuva de pedra, aí nós descemos com ele pra cá, tava tudo fechado, a televisão ligada, tudo aí, nós tentamos entrar pra essa porta, tava trancada, nós arrombamos a porta ali dos fundos, entramos aqui.
Você tava aqui?
Não.
That's me there filming. Bom dia. February 9, this was Linda taping inside Urandir's bedroom. That's the Urandir's house. This is Urandir.
On February 9th, 2003, 5 months later, I traveled to Urandir Oliveira's home to see the bed and ceiling body patterns and to collect samples for scientists to study.
Bom, aí como já havia uma expectativa, né? E a hora já estava sendo praticamente...
Urandir Oliveira talked to me through a Portuguese to English translator about his experience. He explained what he remembered the night of September 15th, 2002.
Assim, esperando chegar meia-noite, que eu achava que eu só iria à meia-noite, né? Que era onde finalizava o horário.
He's saying that he was prepared for this, that was going to happen on this night. And actually, he was very much concerned and waiting for the agenda. And so he came to bed and waiting for this and got a book to read. And suddenly he started feeling like very warm and the atmosphere was getting strange going on, and he felt his body warm up as if he was having a very high fever.
E clarão violeta tomou conta de todo o ambiente.
And a big bright violet light just dominated the whole room. Violet. So the light that it was like a big flash, violet, that entered fulfilled the whole room. After the flash.
But was it like a camera flash that goes off?
Esse clarão é como disparo de flash de uma máquina?
Sim, como se fosse disparo de flash.
Yeah, exactly.
Mas que prolongou pouco mais, né?
But a flash that stood for a while.
Okay.
And formed this light cube.
And what happened?
E o que aconteceu?
Aí eu fui levitando, subindo.
And then he was lifted up.
E me vi passando também.
And he saw himself going through the ceiling.
And he was totally conscious?
E você estava totalmente consciente.
Consciente total.
Totally conscient.
Now,
Conscious.
why is it, if his arm was extended with that book out, why would he have left his arm out going through the ceiling?
Se o braço estava segurando o livro e o livro caiu, por que o braço continuou na mesma posição?
Eu fiquei como se estivesse paralisado.
He was just like if he were paralyzed.
Até atravessar a última camada do teto, né,
Until
do
he
telhado, eu me
went
senti
through the
assim.
last level of the roof.
Quando eu cheguei após o telhado, passou o telhado, o forro, depois do telhado, aí é como se eu tivesse um movimento lá em cima e eu me virei.
After he actually left this environment and went through the roof, and he was already in the air out of here, he could move. He recovered his moves.
Did he have any change in the sensation as he went into the ceiling?
Do momento que você começou a levitar daqui da cama até o teto, no momento de você passar no teto, você teve algum outro sentimento, alguma...
Não, você sentiu alguma coisa diferente quando você passou através do teto?
Eu sentia como se
This is me speaking. I was
né, quebrando.
beside
It felt
Linda.
like if he was feeling all his bones being stretched like yawning.
Bones?
All his bones.
All his bones were being stretched. Does that mean that he felt pain?
Você sentiu dor?
Não, não.
No pain.
But a stretching feeling throughout his skeletal structure.
Yes.
And as he is reaching to, could he see with his eyes the wood in the ceiling?
Quando você estava atravessando o teto, você via a madeira?
Você atravessando um campo espumoso.
As if he was going through some kind of foam.
A foam. Does that mean he could see holes as if he were seeing under a microscope the wood?
É como se você estivesse vendo através de um microscópio.
Mais ou menos isso.
Yeah, exactly.
Why would he not be physically burned if there is this much scorching on the sheets?
Por que você não se queimou a cama?
Parece que uma programação deles própria, porque a cama, o lençol e o short, que também era do mesmo tecido, não ficou queimado. Somente a cama, né, e por motivo assim, porque eu não sei ainda, né? Eles assim não explicaram, eles disseram simplesmente que era uma interação da matéria normal a esse decalque. Se tivesse um lençol em cima de mim, esse mesmo decalque teria ficado no lençol.
He's saying that he cannot explain exactly why, but what the beings told him is that this is provoked by the interaction of the matter. And if there was a blanket on top of him, it would have happened the same thing.
Then why is it that I don't know of another abduction case in 40 years, of maybe thousands, where anything like this has ever happened before?
Ela está perguntando por que em 40 anos e dos conhecimentos que ela tem de abduções.
You see, this is very significant. She's saying there, on record, on tape, that in 40 years of research, she's never came across an abduction such as this. And it's very strange that she would sit on it for almost 25 years, maybe. She never spoke about this again. She never presented this abduction case in a major UFO Congress anywhere in the world. That I know that she has participated in several. How come she never presented it? She just presented once in a very small gathering of UFO researchers in Seattle, I think a few months after her visit here to Brazil. This is so strange. This is her words. This is the most incredible abduction. I've never seen anything like this, and yet she sat on it for all these years.
Outras abduções, ou até mesmo em 1000 anos, nunca se teve notícia de uma experiência que deixasse esse tipo de marcas e consequências.
Porque essa foi a única abdução programada. Eu sabia que seria levada.
Because this was according to what he's saying, this was the only programmed abduction that he was conscious about, and he was programmed, and he knew that was going to happen.
But why would that make a difference?
E por que isso faria diferença com evidências físicas?
É porque é o seguinte, eles deixaram aqui uma prova para que aquilo que eu estivesse falando fosse analisado, e tivesse uma prova científica, né, várias evidências, justamente para que se cumprisse. Se eu disse X coisa, as pessoas que me acompanham, elas deveriam ter certeza que realmente eu fui. Não poder, assim, até mesmo para dar credibilidade. Eles não precisavam deixar essa marca.
There was no need to leave these marks actually, but they wanted to leave him with enough credits to the public and to the science community that these evidences are very clear.
At this point, I asked Urandir Oliveira if he would lay down on the left side of the bed next to the body print so I could compare. There were no foot or right-hand prints on the bed sheet or in the ceiling.
He's going to lay down exactly on the same position that he was. He was more or less like that, reading a book.
Now, his feet seem to go off the edge of the bed.
Seus pés parecem saírem do limite da cama. Estavam mesmo? His feet were actually on this position, out of the edge of the bed.
Okay, what was laying on the pillow then? Because his head goes beyond those scorch marks on the pillow.
O que estava no travesseiro? Porque se você não estava encostado a cabeça, his head was on the pillow.
Mas eu estava assim.
He was actually with his head on the pillow.
Okay,
like that.
And then that means that these bottom marks aren't his feet, but they are the calves of his legs.
Então essas marcas não são dos pés, são das batatas da perna. Up to where he's showing.
Right.
The speculation is that the violet beam technology did not have to separate his feet and right hand from the bed sheet. So the energy was different in those places when Urandir's body went through the ceiling without leaving feet or handprints in the wood.
Nothing seems changed
Ainda não faz
on the
sentido.
photographs that were taken on the 15th. In other words, you would have thought there would be something from a re-entry.
Não tem nenhuma impressão de retorno. Ainda não faz sentido.
Da mesma forma que eu vim.
In the same way he went, he came back.
Como se fosse assim, uma programação no computador.
And this is just a little heating tool, simulates a blowtorch.
Okay.
So it generates a high heat in a confined area. So I mounted the fabric on a piece of glass. We took a small square of the fabric that you left with me, and I wet it to simulate the conditions that were described.
Perspiration
and moisture from the shower. I used a small heat source, a torch, and I heated the center of the fabric. You can see it started to char in the middle, but the ring around the charred area is darker in color, similar to some of the areas on the fabric, and that's because the polyester is shrinking away from the heat.
So the halo is created by the polyester melting and
shrinking and exposing more of the cotton.
Now, the shape of your melted polyester, it's not quite identical to the Brazil. This is that 40 power photomicrograph that W.C. Levengood, biophysicist, did. And when you take the experiment that Phyllis Budinger did with an iron and you put it down, one of the things that struck me now that we're comparing is that the 3 seconds, 4 seconds, and 10 seconds of the iron on some of the control from this bed sheet, it seemed to be kind of flattened.
Flattens polyester. When polyester is heated under pressure, it spreads, and that makes it look flat on top. And in fact, it is flat on top when you do that. You can do that at home when you iron something if you want to.
Well, and also, biophysicist Levengood said that this side of the bed sheet and the opposite side of the bed sheet, he's examined both sides, they have the equally sort of perfect polyester, it isn't flattened. So an iron itself could not explain this pattern.
No.
You could not make.
If it was done with an iron, they'd be flat, just like those photographs. So it's some other heat source. What that is, we don't know.
Could you explain a little bit about the possible importance that water might have played, both from having taken a shower and perspiration when this individual laid down?
When cotton gets wet, moisture actually goes into the fiber. In other words, it's inside the fiber, as well as on the surface. Polyester, the water remains on the surface. So in the presence of a high temperature, the water will evaporate from the surface of the polyester before it evaporates from the cotton, because the water is bound to the cotton fiber. So in order to damage the cotton fiber, you have to evaporate the water to get the fiber hot enough to burn. But since the polyester isn't really holding water, it can absorb heat more rapidly. And that may explain why the polyester melted and the cotton in a number of these areas wasn't particularly damaged. The other point that I'd make, in the report that you have, if you flip back several pages, she talks about thermal conductivity.
Right, that polyester has a more rapid, will you explain it?
Well, if you look here, the numbers that she's given you indicate that polyester is 10 times more conductive than cotton. If that in fact is the case, then of course the polyester could absorb the heat more rapidly than the cotton.
And from your knowledge as being a testing laboratory in textiles, you would agree with the 10 times. Polyester has a heat transfer that's 10 times faster than cotton.
No.
Okay. You tell.
No,
tell
I
me,
wouldn't.
Tell me what you know.
Well, what I know is from several different texts that they generally suggest that cotton is more conductive than polyester, which is why polyester is used as an insulating material in winter clothing and other things. And you don't fill a ski jacket with cotton, you fill it with polyester, because polyester is a better insulator than cotton.
Can you talk about some of these complex variations? You found a lot of non-vitreous fibers moving in horizontal lines inside of where the polyester otherwise had gone into vitreous.
Well, once again, it depends on how much heat and how long. You said you found some fibers that had unmelted filaments on the inside, some strands.
Right.
And it's just that simple. The outside gets hotter than the inside when you raise the temperature. It's just like if you cook something in the oven. The outside cooks before the inside. So that doesn't seem terribly perplexing.
Does that suggest, though, that whatever did happen to this bed sheet happened in a very quick period of time?
I would think so. I would think so. Especially with the temperatures that are involved and the fact that the cotton wasn't degraded more than it was, it would seem that it would have had to have been a fairly quick occurrence, whatever happened here.
And the amount, we're talking in seconds, right?
I would think so.
But in terms of your reproducing, if you had the challenge of reproducing exactly this pattern that you're seeing from there, the top of the pillowcase, it's also burned underneath the pillowcase as if this might have been crunched out, which is a delicate and interesting feature of this. How would you do it if you were going to try to reproduce everything that you're seeing?
I don't know exactly what I do, but I can tell you that we probably need a lot of bedspreads till we got it right. It wouldn't happen the first time. At least not what I see happening here.
So this is extraordinary.
I think so. Yeah. It's very unusual.
What about some of these details that the biophysicists found in the microscope having to do, let's take this polyester, that 1.4 millimeter thread.
How about, I have no idea, okay, why that could have happened. I mean, you have let's say, polyester here, and here, and here, and here. All along here you have this one that's obviously missing. And why? It would, you'd almost have to have a very a pinpoint heat source like a laser to do something like that.
Okay, if you had a pinpoint that could go down to 0.4 millimeters, could a 0.4 millimeters laser make this complicated pattern?
No. No. I don't know exactly how this was done. The exposure of a particular area of the fabric has to occur very quickly. Now, can someone with a heat source start down here and spend 20 minutes doing this? Perhaps, but the point is, if you have a heat source that's intense enough to melt the polyester and still not cause intense damage to the cotton, or at least some of the cotton, it has to move fairly quickly along this pattern. It either happens, the whole thing all at once, or it has to be very carefully guided to get this effect without actually starting a fire of some kind.
Because really at 500 degrees Fahrenheit, which we have to be somewhere in that range, that kind of exposure to this polyester and cotton blend for more than, say, a few, like 2 or 3 minutes, you would end up with a black, charred, probably tarry.
Oh, that kind of exposure, that kind of heat on this fabric, you're talking about no more than 10 seconds in any one area, probably. Otherwise, you'd ignite it.
You'd ignite it into fire.
Yeah.
It as a plasma because apparently that's
Professor
a
Goma Omar from Egypt is a geology expert and has taught and researched at the University of Pennsylvania for 25 years. He is baffled about the origin and creation mechanism of the several football-shaped Corguinho stones that he examined.
It's very clear when you look at the cross-section here, you really can see how they are banded. Can you see the bending there in each one of these impacts? You really can see how they bended they are, and another one too. You can see the bands there, and you can see, of course, here the football outline and football-like outline in the other one. But the most important thing is that really the bending there. And this is the mystery to me. I mean, I don't see that very often, so this is what something should be investigated further, no doubt about it.
You've never seen it before, though, you had said.
No, I never seen this particular football-like shapes and this particular mineral arrangement. I didn't see that before now.
And to produce the shape of these sort of football-shaped or disc-shaped stones, and if I'm understanding correctly, to have all of this quartz embedded in the iron, and when you go up to a higher magnification, to the 100, could you do that? And if I understood correctly, then all of these ragged edges around the quartz are again because the iron was at about 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit.
It was in a melt, yes.
And
yes.
So these, whatever their formation, they had to have been in some kind of a liquid form.
Yes. Definitely, it's very clear that the quartz grains were floating in this iron liquid. at high temperature. That's another observation too we can make.
As we were looking at one of the slides cut from the football-shaped stone, Dr. Omar changed lenses to 400 power.
There's one. There's three.
Scattered among the quartz were unidentified fibrous crystals.
Like that's one, and this looks like that's a piece of one down there.
Yeah, but these are the spectacular ones that are in the corner. You see the difference in colors has something to do with the thickness of the crystal.
I see.
All right, so whenever you get blue or yellow, golden yellow like this, or greenish, that has something to do with the thickness, as you can see it there.
And if the quartz grains have been eaten away by the melted iron, are you looking here at fibrous crystals that have not been eaten away by melted iron?
Maybe at the edges here, maybe toward the edges there a little bit, yes. But it looks like they are more resistant to the decay and the decomposition by the hot liquid than the quartz.
So whatever these are, they are able to resist a high melt temperature more than the quartz.
You could say that, yeah. How much, I don't know.
And is it true that in these football-shaped rocks that you have evidence that they have been exposed to high pressure because the center is...
I would say high temperature. High temperature, yes. But as to the bending and the stratification going from the center outward, that has something to do with spinning force. We just talking about it before. That's the most likely explanation so far. And I really don't know what will cause this spinning force to form this. So that's the stratification inside. I think it's due to the spinning force, which it would be nice to know how that happened.
Incredible, huh? All this information sort of suppressed.
Yes,
There's no reason. There's simply no reason for Linda to have sat on this case for such a long time. And according to her words, this is the most incredible abduction. Never seen anything like this. Why? Because we cannot be corroborated. Otherwise, it will be impossible to maintain the current narrative, official narrative. That's it. It's crazy, huh?
Yeah, something I think is important guys to point out here is from these videos, you can see how Linda, she's a scientist. She's been on that for like in 40 years. She's never seen anything like that. And the approach that how she does is like she takes these samples to the most very well-known universities. She's got, from the questions she asked, she's got a very scientific approach to everything. She keeps questioning all these scientists, and they just say, yeah, I cannot explain that. With the science that we get from these most known and with very great reputation, and they can't explain what's happening. And this shows us how Dakila is that's why it's called Dakila Research. We are a scientific organization. We take things very seriously, and even scientists from these very well-known universities, they can't explain what happened there, and a journalist like Linda could not can't explain that, can't understand. And she was silenced very clearly, because when you have something, she could have basically became the most, with the greatest reputation in the world, and she was silenced very clearly, because how when you're a scientist, you have, like I've done some research before, and when you find good things, all you want to do is to present that, and that has to be known, right? And they did not do that. It's very clear. So, and with multiple things that happened in Dakila before, with people trying, with bringing lasers, and in discussions in the Congress about UFO, they never invited Dakila to have a saying on that. Why? That's what we need to question ourselves when we are seeing something like that, because that's how we're gonna change this. It's not through organizations, governments, or anything like that. It's through us, that we are the ones who are going to make a difference and change what needs to happen. And that's why we're getting help from these very ethical beings, because they are, as you can see from this video, they are millions of years ahead of us in terms of technology.
Billions.
Billions.
Billion. 10 billion years ahead of us in technology.
Ahead of us in technology.
According to them. According to them.
But that's the thing that some people question, how can we trust what they say? Well, they're guiding us, they're showing us technology we've never seen before. Scientists from other universities have never seen this before. Like, there is no, well, I trust, because like I've never seen anything like that. They're giving us really good guidelines, really good technologies, and how am I not? If what we've got nowadays is just governments and institutions, global organizations that don't even look after the population. So who is going to do that? And it's through people like us, and that we think we're too small, but I think each individual can make a big difference, and us together we can make a big impact and change that. So that's why we're sharing this here, is for us to be educated on what's happening in Brazil and share that with the world, because we want us together to, bring what's best for everyone. That's something, if it's not good for, that's something in Dakila that I always take into my life. If it's not for everyone involved, it's not good for no one. And I think through this whole work Dakila is doing, I think that's the aim, is to educate us to know when these narratives start coming to play, we'll know what is actually real and what's not. We've been fooled by these people for many years now. So now it's time that we start looking at evidence and what really makes sense, and yeah, so that's why we're sharing all of that. Thanks, Felipe, for sharing these videos. I've never seen them before, and it's very valuable.
It's interesting because, as you were saying, this is the way, this is the fashion in which we have grown organically, because we've been persecuted since day one. And despite of that, we just grew, expanded, and now we're present in 12 countries. We have thousands of people who are associates of the ecosystem. We have more than 9 companies in the ecosystem. We have, a lot of interesting technologies that are going to come out this year. They're going to amaze the world, all coming from our partners. And that's how we're going to change the situation. It has to be an organic movement, not at all aligned with the powers that be, because these guys are working on behalf of another different group of aliens, which do not have our best interest in their hearts. They are here to manipulate, to control, and they have been enslaving us for the past, 8,000 years, 10,000 years. And we have to change the situation. But change, through technology and knowledge. People have to be aware of how the game is being played, and how to neutralize it. It's through knowledge alone. Okay, that's the way it is.
Yeah. Thank you, Aline. Thank you, Felipe, for all of the words. That's the mean. We are here today to show all of this, and also enjoy the disclosure they are ready to do. And we're gonna do our disclosure. We're gonna go and show what we know and what we have until now after 30 years, 30 plus years of researches. So let's do it. Aline, we have some questions, I think. I can't see from here, but if you can read to us, it will be amazing.
Yes, sure. So Felipe got about 3 questions here. I'm going to ask one at a time, and then we can reply, just so we don't miss anything. So question 1, when the Anunnaki created humans, did they act alone? Was it only the Anunnaki involved, or were other races working alongside them? And did other races intervene in human creation after the Anunnaki created the first human?
Okay, good question. Well, the Anunnaki group landed here 450,000 years ago, okay? and they fabricated the human, the modern humans that we know. And also they fabricated different races known as Cro-Magnon, Denisovan, Neanderthals. They're all slave races fabricated by the Anunnakis. There were other races involved with different alien races prior to the Anunnakis. But I don't want to bring that to the table because it's going to confuse a little bit. I would say that our recent history, 450,000 years ago up to today, mainly the Anunnakis fabricated the current humans. They have races involved with them. The race known as the Igigi or Igigi, they are the engineers, the scientists who are involved with the Anunnakis, the Greys as well. They work with the Anunnakis, okay? So there are a few races that work with the Anunnakis, all of them from the third dimension, all of them from the same density as we are. Nevertheless, a few thousand years ago, the 49 races approached the Anunnaki geneticist. His name is known as Enki. And they told him, would you like an advanced genetic technology in order to fabricate a more evolved humans that will be able to manipulate more sophisticated technologies, machinery of your race? We are aware that you are having problems with the Igigi because the Igigi used to work for the Anunnakis. They used to be the, let's say, the engineers, the workers, involved in the mining endeavors of the Anunnakis. And they were, not really happy with the working conditions, if you will, because they were not used to toil, hard on earth as in their home world, if you will. And the 49 races offered technology, advanced technology, so that Enki could build a more sophisticated human race that were able to manipulate sophisticated machinery so that the Igigi would have less burden on their backs, And this race is known today as the Adamic race. The Adamic race is part Anunnaki and part dimensional. 1/3 of humans on Earth have Adamic genes. Why the 49 races decided to help the Anunnakis, create this more sophisticated race? Because, well, it's a long story, but I'm going to sort of, give you a brief here. They did that because they were planning in the future to reincarnate here in physical bodies, such as this one, the ones we have here, the ones we are now. Okay, and for that, they would have to improve the physical body that the Anunnakis built with their technology, with their genetic technology, that would permit eventually those dimensionals incarnating into these physical bodies, with this different genetic makeup, they will be able to undergo in a specific training, such as the one we are receiving from the partners, go through a process known as transmutation. Why this was important for the 49 races? Because the 49 races knew that since time for them is relevant, they know about future events, about past, there's no time as we understand there in their world. in their dimensions. They were aware of a mutation that would occur in the future, okay, that would cause the beings of the Adamic race to express the emotions in 100% of intensity, okay, whereas in all other physical third-dimensional races, including the Greys, the Anunnakis, the Digis, all other third-dimension races everywhere in the universe could only express 10 to 15% emotional intensity. And this anomaly in quotes, was very important for the 49 races, because once harnessing these emotions, you would allow them to sort of further their evolution. It's a little bit complicated to explain now, but this was the plan. So basically, in our recent history, I'm counting like 500,000 years ago up to today, the Anunnaki played the most important part here on Earth, okay? Together with the Ikigis, I wouldn't say the Greys, not much, but more the Anunnakis and the Ikigis. The Anunnakis, they control all governments on the Earth, okay? All the elites, okay, all the elites that operate here, they operate on behalf of the Anunnakis. Many people talk about, the Bilderberg, the Illuminatis, these power groups, thinking that, the decisions emanate from them, and this is not correct. They are simply water boys, errand boys of this powerful Anunnaki group that controls everything on Earth, absolutely everything, through their errand boys, if you will. Basically, that's it. That's the picture.
Philip, we have here another question is about the Anunnaki when they arrive. Who was already inhabiting Earth, and where do these planetary beings you mentioned, like if the planetary beings were here, what's the context when the Anunnaki arrived, if we know anything about who was already inhabiting here?
That's a great question. I have asked the partners several times in order to understand the geopolitics, if you will, of the time. They haven't explained. They just said that there were 7 races involved prior to the Anunnakis, together with the Muriel that arrived here 450 million years ago, okay? The Muriel were the first ones to set foot on the Earth. They have sort of colonized the Earth. They have mapped out if you will, energetic grid of the Earth, pinpointing the most important hubs of these energetic lines, ley lines, many people talk about, okay? And they established bases, they established huge cities here. Most of the megalithic structures found today are Muriel, are from the Muriel civilization. They were the first here. They were a world civilization. After some time, they left the Earth, but they left here a descendants. How did it go about? We don't know. The partners haven't explained, but they left descendants. Recently, we obtained a very interesting information that the people of the Tartarian civilization were descendants of the Muriel. So they stayed several million years around here. What was their relation to the Anunnakis? We don't know. They haven't explained. The partners talk to us about a kingdom. They refer to it as a kingdom. located in the delta of the Amazon River. And they said that that kingdom had interactions with the Anunnaki 64,000 years ago, but they did not explain exactly what happened. As a matter of fact, I even asked them if there were wars between the Anunnakis and these groups. They said later we'll explain. But we were also told by the partners that there were 7 other kingdoms linked to the 49 races, okay? The majority of these kingdoms were located in Latin America, from Mexico all the way down to Argentina, and the occidental border was in Turkey. Mount Nemrut was the most occidental border of these 7 kingdoms, but they haven't explained yet. They haven't detailed it yet. So we are still waiting for this information. You know, they function in a need-to-know basis, you know. Usually they do not really explain in an adequate way, in my opinion. You know, sometimes they sort of just give us topics or explain it superficially so we have an idea of what they're talking about. They do not, but nevertheless, they do not go deeper, you know, in the subject. We're waiting for the answers.
Thanks, Felipe. And one last question about the non-human planetary being lives on Earth. Where do they live? Are they intraterrestrial, or do they exist in other dimensions and manifest in the 3D? How does it work?
That's a very interesting question. There are no other races that live in different dimensions. Only the 49 races are extra-dimensional beings. All other beings that we hear, they are all third-dimensional. Same density as we are, okay? They are physical. Because we've been hearing lately, you know, people talking about, oh, they are malign, reptilian, interdimensional races, or CERN opened the portal and demonic beings are flowing in from the... This is bullshit, in plain French. This is BS. It doesn't exist. This is fantasy. This is a narrative, okay? Interdimensional or extra-dimensional beings are only the 49 races, okay? Not to be misunderstood with astral beings. Astral beings, they function between the 3rd and the 4th dimension, and they're usually dead people, disincarnated. It's different. The transmutated beings of the 49 races that live in different dimensions, they are not beings that died and were born in different dimensions. It's different, the process. They went through that transmutation process where they convert their physical matter into energy. 80% energy, 20% matter. Whereas we here on the 3rd dimension are 80% matter and 20% energy. You see what I mean? It's a different line of evolution, unknown by people down here. As well, as far as I understood, nobody's aware of this evolutionary process, okay? Nobody. They still misunderstand astral beings with extra-dimensional beings, you know? So this is not so. But the Anunnakis, thousands of years ago, they used to live and walk among men. They were the deities of Sumer, okay? They were the deities of ancient Greece, ancient Rome. They used to mingle with the population. You can even see in some, especially the Sumerian art, they were taller, much taller than us. They were like 3 meters tall, something like that. And they were humans just like us. I've heard already several researchers talking about the Anunnakis as being reptilian. This is not true. This is fantasy. This is to scare people off, you know. They have nothing to do with it. They're humans with elongated skulls, you see, with the elongated skulls. And nowadays, their main bases are in Antarctica, underground. They no longer interact openly with humans because they're a little bit ugly now. Their faces have deformed a little bit because of the content of our air. Okay, it's a little bit, I wouldn't say harmful, but it causes this. For also some reasons that I'm not going to go into it now because otherwise it's a long conversation, okay? But basically they are underground now. Their bases are underground. Their main bases are in Antarctica. That's why it's prohibited to go there. That's why it's the only international treaty that survived more than 50 years. It was signed in 1952. No nation on earth has ever breached it. All of them respect it, and it's still valid today, which is something very strange. Nobody asks why this happened. Nobody has ever challenged the Antarctica Treaty. Why? Because, you know, the real masters of Earth said, nobody here. And in 1949 or 48, there was a naval expedition, a military naval expedition, known as Project High Jump, where a fleet of US military ships with 6,000 soldiers went down to Antarctica and ran away from there, you know, very quickly with many dead, several ships destroyed. No, I think that, I don't know what happened to them, but they tried to, you know, check something out there, and they were sent away, you know, very quickly. This is their base now. They also have bases in Lebanon, underneath Baalbek, in the subterranean, location there in Baalbek in Lebanon, also in Iraq, also in other places as well. But the main one is in Antarctica. Okay, under the sea as well, and there are also other races. Okay, soon the people here on Earth will find out that there are other physical races around here. Okay, but this is a different story. I don't want to go into that. I usually like to focus on the Anunnakis, but because they are the ones responsible for this invisible prison we live in. So, but there are other races as well. Okay, they are not playing a major part because the consolidated power belongs to the Anunnakis here on Earth, for the moment at least.
Felipe, I have a question as well. Sorry. Have the 49 beings races contacted or tried to contact anybody else prior to our group or big governments before?
That's a tricky question. I know the answer, but I cannot speak openly about it. What I can say is that they have tried to contact other governments. They passed on a little bit of knowledge, information, and technology, but these governments did not use for the benefit of the population. They used it in order to consolidate their power. And also, one major religion was contacted by them a few decades ago. They passed on information, not technology, but they passed on information and funds. How? I cannot discuss. But they passed funds and information. And what did this religion do in order, you know, to honor the apparent agreement they agreed upon then. They used it to expand their influence and to further their control on the population. Same MO as the government. Okay? So the partners decided to adopt a different strategy. How? Preparing one person since birth, that's our president, Urandir, preparing him to train a group of people in order to be able to converse with the 49 races in a physical, face-to-face fashion, verbal, face-to-face fashion, so that this group could establish an institution, Dakila, that would expand to encompass all walks of life, industry, education, financial branch, health, all aspects of life, so that we would create a framework in order to allow our partners to introduce technologies and other things to concretely better the population, because governments and this religion were not interested. Also, there is a country that received fragments of information. It did not have a partnership, okay? An official partnership with the partners, but indirectly received fragments of information, of knowledge, okay? And this nation changed its status in a couple of years. It was the greatest economic and social miracle in the history of humanity. And yet, the powers that be made sure that this history was never known. Never known. An event occurred that masked all that happened in this country. And the partners told me, this was in an interaction between the political group of Dakila, which is a group of 9 people that I belong to this group, was an interaction, a conversation we had of many years with the partners. It started in 2010, all the way up to 2017, where they instructed us how to do the research, where to find information, to learn about all this that I'm talking about concerning these countries, you know, specifically this country that I'm talking to you guys about. The partners told me the occult government, as they call this parallel government, world government, that works in tandem with the Anunnakis, not in tandem, but on behalf of the Anunnakis. They told me, no, the powers that be will never permit a country, a system that will provide protection, comfort, and prosperity for the population. And this was occurring in this country for a very short time, but it did. They made sure that nobody would ever know this history, even though it was a few decades ago. They made sure that this knowledge wouldn't be known by the population, and they would cover the situation in a very effective way. I have to be careful with words here because, you know, it's complicated. They prohibit us to talk openly about it because it's a very sensitive matter. All right. But what I can say is that history was distorted in such a way that nobody would touch the history of this place. Because if they do, as I have done, you will find the truth very easily. It's incredible. It's incredible. And it's shocking how the lies are so bold and incredible. We can have the example of Great Tartary, which was this huge world civilization that many people are beginning to talk about. You know, we see many documentaries on YouTube about Great Tartaria. Of course, many are bullshit, but there are a few sources which are incredible. Scientists, engineers that are analyzing the constructions, you know, the data, the information found in libraries all over the world and stuff like that. They are really puzzled by the power of our leadership to change history and hide the truth from us. You see, from a situation that occurred like 200 years ago. And I'm referring to the Great Tartary. So they can easily manipulate history. They can easily indoctrinate us in incredible ways. Can you imagine ancient history, thousands of years ago? Everything's wrong. Our partners have been telling us our history is wrong. Our recent history and our ancient history. It's all wrong. And the research Dakila has been doing with Ratanabá, where we are discovering this huge lost civilization, if you will, in the Amazon, in the heart of the Amazon, known in mythology as El Dorado, you know, as the City of Z. It was a famous Hollywood movie, you know. We discovered it, and we're going to reveal it to the world, and it's going to shock everybody, because there we can find evidence, you know, concrete evidence to prove many of the things we've been saying from this past years. You know, it's going to be wonderful. Unravel all this to the population. We'll shock many people.
We will. After all this being revealed, we'll be shocking everybody, huh? But we need to do something in order to change everything as well. If it needs to be shocking, it's going to be shocking, you know. Well, I think, do you have any questions? More questions, Aline?
Felipe, I know you can't mention the country, but I'm just with curiosity. Does this country still exist, or it's vanished?
Still exists.
Okay.
And I'm going to say just this thing now. It still exists. And if you do a close research, they are imploding it on purpose. They are destroying it, okay? And they are, how can I put it? They are making sure. No, I can't say it. No, I went too far. That's it. I cannot go any further. But if you do a little research, you can understand the country I'm talking about.
Very good. Thank you, Felipe. Well,
if I get distracted, I speak. I talk too much. If I get distracted, I gotta focus.
It's involving, isn't it? It's a big amount of information we get from our partners as well. But we need to be sure we just share a few things that you can take it for the moment, as they do with us. Like they say to us, not all of the information in once. They say to us pieces and pieces, as Felipe explained before. Exactly. And also, we see an understanding of the lilario signs. which is another type of science we have never been in contact with. And it's hard to understand once you have this blurry idea of a science we have nowadays, from nowadays. And also we think that everything needs to come to us as an information in a aligned type of information, and sometimes it's not. Sometimes you need to get this information here and there and make the dots together, make the sense, connect the dots together. Exactly. So well, that's for now today. I think it was amazing. Felipe showed us, actually, guys, very good videos, very good information today, and I think you were privileged for having this. So we are going to put this video on your YouTube channel, so you can share with people that you want to share, and also being able to share in English will be easier to spread the word as well. And I hope these can help us to spread more and more the information as we have, and open up our minds to have a different mindset about what we live here and what we are. Thank you for everybody to come here today. Thank you, Felipe. Thank you, Aline, for the beautiful words you have spoke about our work in Dakila as well. And we see you in the next session. So thank you for coming.
Thank you very much. Till next time, guys. Hope I haven't shocked you guys with the information I've imparted today, but that's the way it is. It's time for the truth. Thank you.
Thanks, Felipe. Thanks, Pamela. Thanks, everyone who joined us. It's been incredible. I've seen things today that I've never seen before, like these videos shared by Felipe. And yeah, it's always good to be surrounded by like-minded people and grow together. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.